Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. That Father's Day morning, William woke up early as usual and sat alone on his balcony, waiting for his wife, Sarah, and two teenage daughters to wake up. He sipped his coffee, and in the morning light, his thoughts couldn't help but go back to the holiday times of the past. Every Mother's Day, he prepares an elaborate champagne breakfast, an exquisite cheese platter, and Sarah's favorite steak dinner. As his daughters grew up, Father's Day instead became a day he looked forward to alone. In past years at this time, Sarah always prepared a special breakfast for him. This year, however, he just sat quietly, feeling the hunger rising in his belly. When Sarah finally got up, she just casually kissed him on the cheek and started preparing a normal family breakfast. Afterwards, they went to a Doctor Who-themed cafe and simply had some specialty sandwiches. Sarah has always been a perfectionist, and as the precise controller of her family's schedule, she carefully marks every holiday and birthday on her calendar. When she found out that William's birthday coincided with Father's Day this year, William wasn't surprised. She joked about doubling his gift and hinted at a special surprise. William kissed her cheek, his heart expecting more affection than usual. Sarah always likes to flirt and joke when the two of them are close, but on special days like his birthday and Father's Day, she gives her most sincere love. However, over time, William senses some subtle changes. The ever-steady Sarah is starting to act differently. She worked longer and longer hours at the bakery and began to pay extra attention to dressing up, even wearing makeup more often than ever. When she goes out alone one Friday night, a strong uneasiness rises within William. This is completely out of character for them, as they have always been close and prefer to enjoy their world as a couple, rarely engaging in social activities. Their marriage has always been solid and harmonious. Neither of them is particularly keen on socializing, and a quiet night at home is what they cherish the most. That Friday, when William saw Sarah in her brand new dress, beige stockings and heels, with her hair styled as perfectly as if it had just been styled, he thought they had some kind of date planned together. He whistles flirtatiously, looking forward to a romantic evening, but Sarah says she has to party with her coworkers. When he asked why she hadn't mentioned it before, she looked a little flustered and explained that it was an impromptu decision. William watched her, wondering in the back of his mind how she had managed to dress herself so exquisitely in such a short period of time. Despite his growing inner turmoil, he still can't believe that Sarah would betray the marriage. She had been the typical suburban wife and mother figure, and besides, their married life had always been harmonious and happy, which confused him even more. Sarah downplayed the fact that she was just working half a day and wanted to look nice. As she hurried out of the house, William could only stand stunned and speechless. It wasn't until nearly midnight that Sarah came home, her hair disheveled and casually tied back, and that talk of partying with her coworkers completely fell apart in William's mind. She deliberately avoided his gaze and walked straight into the bathroom. William had a clear sense that something was completely wrong, but couldn't say exactly what was wrong. On the surface, it was business as usual, but deep down he had a feeling that a storm was coming. An intuition that stemmed from the keen observation skills he had developed over many years of working in the retail industry. Early Saturday morning, when William left for work early, Sarah broke the mold by not getting up to say goodbye. In front of the store, he meets Emma, the morning shift barista, who always stands out with her fiery red hair and clear blue eyes. William has always found redheads attractive, even though he's always been faithful in his marriage. "William," called Emma softly as he walked toward the door. The store door was still locked at this point, and it was still half an hour before we left the store. Emma has mentioned that she doesn't really like working with night shift employees. William opened the door for her and she asked with concern, "Don't seem to be in a good mood today?" "Just something on my mind," he confessed. Emma cast an inquiring glance, but had the good sense not to press the issue. "Just a moment. I'll make you a cup of the finest coffee," she said gently. William forced a small smile and nodded softly. "Sounds good." William walked into the store and made his customary, though not necessary, rounds of the departments. His team was always well managed. He enjoys chatting with employees and maintaining a positive work atmosphere. He believes it works, and the staff seems to appreciate that. The last stop was the cafe, where Emma already had a cup of black coffee ready for him. Here's your best coffee, Emma said as she handed over the coffee. Thanks, Emma, William replied, while pushing $2 onto the counter. Come on, boss, she insisted. It's my intention. Emma, I can't risk it, he explained. I'll have to pay for it myself. You wouldn't believe that anyone would complain to headquarters over a $2 cup of coffee. William, I would never do that, Emma exclaimed. I know, but it's better to be careful, he explained. This kind of trouble isn't worth it. Okay, boss, I understand. She nodded in response. William waved goodbye and sipped his coffee. He knows that there may be some employees who get free coffee once in a while, but it's not worth it to fret over such trivialities. He has enough stressful things to deal with in his job, such as parking problems or personnel disputes. The day passed calmly, the most exciting event being nothing more than an old woman trying to steal bird food and cat food, which gave him some distraction to forget about the troubles at home for a while. When he gets home, he finds Sarah and his daughters getting ready to go out to a concert, something they had planned earlier, but which he had completely forgotten about. He had been so distracted lately that these things had slipped from his mind. He had hoped to talk to Sarah later in the evening to sort out the doubts brought on by last night's events, the sense of unease that had been plaguing him. That night, he decides to check Sarah's email, but to his dismay, finds no suspicious messages. He couldn't check her texts or call logs, and rummaging through her clothes was fruitless. Frustrated, he gave up the search, watched a movie, and went to bed, but remained restless inside. When his birthday come Father's Day rolled around, things still started as usual: toast, coffee, and enjoying the morning quiet on the porch. The birds were chirping, and he couldn't help but ponder what the day would bring. About 9 o'clock, when he went back to the house to pour the coffee, he found Sarah and his daughters already up and busy preparing a picnic. Where are you going with this? He asked with some surprise. To the beach. Olivia, the oldest daughter, replied absently. The answer caught him off guard, and just as he was confused, the phone rang. He hoped it was them calling to say they'd changed their minds, but it was his mother's voice on the other end of the line. Hi, William. Happy birthday and happy Father's Day, she said cheerfully. Thanks, Mom, he replied. I bet Sarah's got a lot of special events planned for you guys today, huh? She added. No, she took the girls to the beach. He told his mother. That's strange. It's not like her. I thought she'd make a special breakfast for you to make the day revolve around you, she commented. Yeah, she's been acting all weird lately for a while now, he admitted. Don't worry too much, dear, she soothed. She's probably preparing some special surprise for later in the evening. I have to go to church. Love you, William. I love you too, Mom. He hung up. His mother's eternal optimism and the close relationship she had with Sarah always warmed his heart, especially a few years after his father's death. Just as he was thinking about his marriage, the phone rang again. This time it was his assistant. Hey, William, there was an accident at the coffee shop this morning. What happened? Is it Emma? He asked eagerly. Yes, unfortunately a customer shoved her on the stairs, and she lost her balance and fell. It looked like it might be broken, and they took her to St. Alex's for x-rays. Oh God, poor girl. Do you need me to cover the shift? He asked. No, everything is under control. I just wanted to let you know how it goes tomorrow. Sorry to bother you on Father's Day. That's okay. Thanks for telling me, he replied. Despite feeling sorry for Emma, he guessed they wouldn't be back in time to take over. The house was empty, and he went to the IHOP restaurant for breakfast alone. The restaurant was packed with families celebrating Father's Day, which made him feel a sharp pang of discomfort, as if he was out of place. He left the restaurant before his mood got worse and went to McDonald's instead. Sitting in the park with his coffee and orange juice, he thought back to the times he used to take his daughters boating. Now that they are about to go to college, they seem to be becoming more distant from him and closer to their mother. Maybe it's better this way, he tried to convince himself. Time passed in solitude, and he began to wonder if there would be any more special dinners scheduled for tonight. He walked into that Doctor Who-themed cafe and ordered a Reuben sandwich. As he was eating, a comment from his mother-in-law on Facebook caught his attention. She was commenting on a beach photo Sarah had posted. This brought him down even further, and he then went to a sports bar, but the jovial atmosphere there made him even more uncomfortable, and he turned to a cigar bar. At the cigar bar, William had the rare luxury of buying an Opus X cigar and was about to watch the game alone when two older men invited him to join in a card game. "My name is William," he introduced himself politely. "I'm Robert, and this is my brother Thomas," one of them said. They kindly invite William to join the five-card game. "Have a drink, William," Robert said, pointing to the cooler on the floor. William thanked him and grabbed a beer. "What? No kids with you today? Or did the ex-wife take them out with her new boyfriend?" Thomas asked half-jokingly, a teasing smile on his face. William frowned. "No, my wife and daughters went to the beach. It seems they forgot what day it was." "That's a shame," Robert said. "I don't see much of my sons now that they are serving in the military." Thomas nodded in agreement. "My daughter is in California, and my grandson Charlie just turned 2. I'm going to visit them next week." "Sounds good," William responded. "My daughters are 17 and 18, and sometimes I miss when they were little." Both of the older men nodded understandingly, knowing all too well what it was like to be a parent. The conversation eventually came back to William's wife. "Do you think she really just forgot your birthday? Or is she deliberately avoiding you?" Thomas asked bluntly the question that had been bothering William. William began to recount the recent antics, especially that Friday night. The two old men exchanged a meaningful look, and both shook their heads. "She's cheating," Robert said bluntly, and Thomas agreed. William didn't want to believe it, but deep down, the answer seemed to explain everything. "I don't know. I just can't believe this," William whispered, trying to digest the possibility. "Look, William," Robert began, sharing his own experience. "I've been in a similar situation. Late nights out, well-groomed, disdainful of my husband. The signs couldn't be more obvious. When I found out my wife was cheating on me, I was too impulsive and immediately filed for divorce. But I regretted it, and the huge financial loss and emotional trauma made the decision more than worth it. Trust me, if you really love her, consider the path of forgiveness. At our age, we don't get many chances to start over." William thanked them for their advice, although he thought Robert's idea was a bit naive. Forgiveness for cheating? That seems impossible. After saying his goodbyes, he returned home and lay on the couch browsing Facebook, tortured inside by looking at photos of Sarah and her daughters having fun on the beach. At that moment, he finally made up his mind to face the truth. Not only had his wife forgotten his birthday and Father's Day, but more importantly, he was almost certain that she had betrayed him. All the signs were in front of him, and he couldn't turn a blind eye to them anymore. Determined, he was going to give himself a decent night out and enjoy dinner at his favorite restaurant, even if he had to wait a long time. While waiting for a table at the restaurant bar, he ordered a bottle of champagne. An older man sitting next to him frowned slightly at the sight of the champagne, but said nothing, just ordered a whiskey for himself. As the waiter refilled William's glass, the man couldn't resist asking, "Celebrating alone? Or did someone miss their appointment?" "Just me." William smiled faintly. The man nodded, sipping his wine. "I'm waiting for my family, 3 generations of them. But my daughter broke her arm earlier today," he added, still seeming a little teary-eyed at the mishap. William nodded politely in understanding. "Looks like I'll have to cook alone. My wife has to take care of Emma and Lisa, so I'm on my own for a while." Just as he was about to say something else, a little girl crossed the crowded bar area, yelled, "Grandpa," and jumped on the man, giving him a warm hug and kiss. Immediately after, William hears his name being called and looks up to see that it's Emma and her mom walking towards him. The mother-daughter resemblance is striking. "Hey Emma, how's your arm?" William asked with concern. "It's okay, thanks for asking. The painkillers worked, but it did hurt quite a bit at the time," she replied. Emma introduces William to her parents, Carl and Matilda, and her sister Lisa. "William, where is your wife?" Matilda asked curiously. "I'm not so sure," he said. "She took the girls to the beach this morning and hasn't been heard from all day." "On Father's Day and your birthday? That's too much," Matilda exclaimed. "What's wrong with her?" William didn't want to delve into the subject and just shrugged. "Never mind her," insisted Matilda. "You'll dine with us tonight." Carl obviously sensed where the conversation was going and gave William a knowing smile. You don't want them pestering you, William, he said with a light chuckle, obviously knowing the scene well. Thanks, but it's your family day and I shouldn't intrude. William politely excused himself. Stop it, Carl replied. It's our day, William. It's a day that belongs to the fathers. The restaurant's pager went off and Carl left a $2 tip on the counter. We'll meet you at the table. He insisted. I'm sorry, William. My parents are stubborn sometimes. Emma said apologetically. Don't worry, Emma, William soothed. It's better than dining alone. The atmosphere at dinner was relaxed and fun, with everyone sharing funny stories about their kids, and Lisa giggling at her mom's stories from when she was a little girl. During this time, William's cell phone rings, but he ignores it and lets it sit on the table. Is it your wife? Matilda asked curiously. Yes, William admitted. It's complicated. Maybe you can find a way to forgive her. Matilda suggested, while glancing at Carl. William signaled the waiter for the check, grateful for their company, and insisted on treating them to this dinner. As he signed off, he remembered all the advice he'd heard today. Even though there is no hard evidence that Sarah is cheating on him, he can't shake the uneasy feeling as if something serious is going wrong. Upon returning home, his daughters greeted him and apologized for forgetting Father's Day. Girls, it's okay, he soothed. I don't expect you to remember everything. Suddenly, Olivia's expression changed. Wait, it's your birthday? She ran into the house yelling for her mom. Dad, we really didn't know. You must hate us. Olivia cried. No, honey, I'll always love you, he assured. And it's okay that you don't know about this. He tried to hide his anger at Sarah. It wasn't his daughter's fault. It was between him and their mother. He goes upstairs to change, and when he returns, he finds Sarah crying alone. Sorry, she whispered. But William shook his head and walked out onto the patio with his beer and cigar. A few moments later, Sarah walked out as well. William, She opened her mouth, but William interrupted her, his long suppressed anger finally erupting. What's his name? He questioned. She didn't answer, and that silence said enough. At that moment, William realized he was headed for divorce. Marriage to her had been a mistake, and now nearly 20 years later, it was all going to end in such a painful way. Worst of all, he was beginning to wonder just how long she'd been betraying him. And was this the first time? He wasn't even sure he knew the man, and worse, he was beginning to wonder if his daughters were really his children. It shocked him how dark a person's thoughts could become when they were betrayed. He decides on the spot that he's going to take paternity tests for his daughters, not only for the sake of inner peace, but also to embarrass Sarah. That night, he stayed up late researching divorce laws online and eventually fell asleep on the couch, exhausted. He woke up at 5 a.m. to see Sarah curled up in bed, cuddled up on a pillow, looking peaceful. He had to admit that she was still beautiful, but she was no longer his. After a brief shower, he was ready to leave the house without alerting her. In the hallway, Olivia is waiting for him. How bad is it, Daddy? She asked. It's as bad as it gets. He sighed. Can you forgive her? It was just a day's oversight, a mistake. She pleaded. Honey, it's not just forgetting my birthday and Father's Day, he said softly. She cheated on me. No, Dad, she wouldn't do that, Olivia insisted. There has to be some reason, maybe something that's forcing her to do it, but I know she won't. Come to think of it, Olivia, he said with bitterness in his voice. She's been acting strangely these past few weeks. Friday night, she went out so well dressed, but not for me. Olivia was silent, lost in thought. She's been avoiding me all weekend, William continued. She's either feeling guilty or resentful, maybe both. When does she take you and your sister to the beach without me? It's always been a family event. Olivia lowered her head. What if it wasn't cheating? What if it was just an accident? Can't you just forgive her? I have a hard time doubting that this was just an accident, Olivia. Besides, did she think about my feelings when she was with someone else last Friday? She left me behind. That's not love. That's selfishness. He explained. Tears welled up in her daughter's eyes as she clung to him. Please don't get a divorce. I have to go to work, honey. We'll talk later. He finished and watched as Olivia retreated to her sister's room. The rest of the day was like a vague dream. Emma came into the office, and due to an injury to her left hand, she was having trouble filling out accident-related paperwork, and William helped her complete the forms. "How are things at home?" Emma asked with concern. "Not very well," he admitted. She didn't even deny it when I questioned her. "God, William, I'm so sorry," Emma said sympathetically. "Thanks, Emma, but I don't want to talk about that right now," he whispered. Emma nodded understandingly. "I understand that my ex-husband cheated on me while I was pregnant, and I kicked him out before the baby was born. My mother was upset about it and said I was dispensable. That's really bad. It surprised me last night when your mother suggested I forgive my wife." "Yeah, I noticed that too. It makes me wonder if something happened between my parents when I was younger," she said thoughtfully. "If they lie to each other, and yet they're still okay with each other, that's their business. I don't believe in liars." His tone hardened. When William returns home, Sarah is not there. He guessed she might have gone to see the man again. Anger drove him to drive to the grocery store where she worked and found her car in the back of the parking lot. He didn't even get out of the car before he saw her with a young man in his 20s. She noticed him and shouted something, but he drove off straight away. If she's going to cheat, the guy gets to keep her. That night, he packed his bags and checked into the hotel. Jenny and Olivia plead with him to stay, but he can't. "Your mom has been cheating on me," he told them. "I saw her with a man today with my own eyes." "There must be some kind of misunderstanding, Dad," Jenny insisted. "There is no misunderstanding. I saw it with my own eyes," he replied. "Please don't destroy our home." She sobbed. "Your mom ruined the family, not me. I love you both, and I will be in touch with you every day." He comforted his daughters and watched them watch him leave in tears. Sarah almost hit him as she drove out of the driveway, but he didn't care anymore. The following week was torturous. Sarah kept calling and messaging, pleading for another chance. Her family also tried to convince him to talk to her, but he ignored them all. He doesn't want to play these tricks. Even his daughters tried to convince him to forgive her, but he couldn't. Eventually, he went to see a lawyer. Although he paid for most of the house, he was willing to divide it equally. Surprisingly, he doesn't have to pay alimony because Sarah is able to be self-sufficient. The only problem is that there's no hard evidence of cheating, which could weaken his claim, but he's willing to take the risk. Sarah tries to rally her family against him, insisting that she only cheated on him once, on the Friday before his birthday. The whole situation became surreal until he said to have the court request a paternity test, which calmed things down. Then a letter arrives from Sarah admitting that she had an affair with a 21-year-old. That's all the proof he needs. Ultimately, despite Sarah's objections, the judge approved the terms he proposed, and the divorce will be effective in 60 days. After that, he became so isolated that even his mother stopped talking to him and took Sarah's side. It hurt him, but he stood his ground. He calls his daughters every day, and even if they don't answer, he leaves a message. He won't let them forget him. The only thing that warmed William's heart during this difficult time was Sunday coffee time with Emma and Lisa. They would meet at a nearby cafe, and while Lisa watched cartoons intently, he would share with Emma what had been bothering her lately. "The daughters will always figure it out, William," Emma soothed. "They're living with your ex-wife now, so who knows how she'll influence their thoughts." "I hope so," he said softly. "I really miss them." A week later, on Sunday, William arrived at the cafe as usual and was concentrating on his book when a familiar voice came. "Isn't that a coincidence?" Emma smiled. William looked up and waved her off. "Are you following me? Or is this a regular part of your schedule?" she said jokingly, taking a seat across from him. "I actually live in the neighborhood," he said, "and it's become a habit to come here on Sunday mornings for coffee and a book. It's too quiet to be home alone." They chatted about the day-to-day life of this neighborhood, exchanged the minutiae of their lives, and then went their separate ways. The chance encounter was not planned, but the weekly Sunday coffee dates grew into an understanding, and William found himself enjoying his time with her more and more. Lisa is also a delightful child. On the day the divorce became official, William came to the front door of what was once his home. Sarah opened the door with red, puffy eyes, obviously having just cried. "Are the daughters home?" he asked. "They went to school for drama rehearsal." She paused. "I knew you'd be here today. You knew today was the deadline, and you never took any action." There was bitterness in his tone. "Yes," her voice trembled. "I know you might go soft if I begged you to reconsider, but it's done, and I can't do that. You broke my heart, Sarah. Some things are unforgivable," he said calmly. "It was just a mistake, William. Why can't you just forgive me?" She pleaded. He looked straight into her eyes. "When you were with that man, did you consider my feelings? On my birthday, you chose to ignore my existence. Is that what you understand by love? If that's the case, then we shouldn't have been together from the beginning. I never thought it would come to this." She sobbed. "I never thought I'd find out my wife was cheating on me either," he retorted. "But that's the reality." She tried to say something else, but he cut her off. "Not only did you hurt me, but you provoked my mother and daughters to take your side. That's something I'll never forgive." "You're too extreme," she said. "And if you insist on treating our family this way, I'll show every woman you meet in the future how heartless you are. I don't need anyone right now." She snapped. "You're wrong." He stood up. "You'll pay for your choice." As he was about to leave, Sarah took him by the arm. "It's not all my fault," she said desperately. "Why can't you just be understanding?" "Compassionate about what?" He shook off her hand. "That I betrayed the marriage? What kind of example are you setting for your daughters? Teaching them that cheating is just a mistake that can be easily forgiven?" Just then he heard a commotion from behind him. Turning around, Emma had appeared there at some point and was aggressively approaching Sarah. "Stay away from William," Emma warned sternly. William rushed forward and pulled Emma. "Forget it, Emma. She's not worth it." "You heard me, Sarah," Emma finished angrily, turning away. "That's enough, Sarah. It's over. It's all due to your own choices." He finished and watched as Sarah ran away in tears. He caught up with Emma and took her hand. "I'm sorry, William. I was too impulsive earlier." She apologized. "It's okay." He tried to lighten the mood. "The confrontation was kinda a morale booster just now." They smiled at each other and headed for the store. Later that evening, he received a call from his mother, and the call was abruptly cut off. Worried that something was wrong, he couldn't be bothered to reply to Emma's call and rushed straight to his mother's house. When he arrived, the ambulance had already left. At the hospital, he learned that his mother had passed away on the way to the emergency room. Sitting alone in the waiting room, he thought about the last words his mother would have wanted to say, words that would never be heard. The phone rings. It's Emma. "Hi, my mom just died," he said, his voice choking. "God, William, I'm so sorry." Her voice was full of concern. "Do you need me to come over and stay with you now?" "Yes, I don't want to be alone," he said. "I'll be right there," she assured, and William was grateful to have company in this moment. But while waiting for Emma, he finds himself driving up to what used to be his home. Regardless of the current relationship, the news was something he had to tell his daughters to their faces. He was relieved to see his daughters' cars parked in the driveway and Sarah's not there. He walks upstairs and sees Olivia in her room. "Daddy," she called out in surprise, but soon Jenny appeared in the doorway, her face grim. "Have you come to beg for reconciliation?" "No need. You can go," Jenny said coldly. "Grandma had a heart attack this morning and she's gone," he said calmly. Both daughters simultaneously sucked in a breath, and the room fell into silence. "I think I should be the one to break the news to you all in person," he finished softly and turned to leave, ignoring Jenny's shouts behind him. At the moment, he couldn't handle any more emotional conflict. After leaving his daughter's house, William drove to the lake. It had been a place where the family gathered, and he hoped to find some peace here. The slightly cool breeze across the lake brought back so many memories. He grieves not only for the loss of his mother, but also for the disconnect between him and his daughters. He kept asking himself what he had done wrong to alienate his daughters so much. Sarah destroys the family, but they never see it. Absorbed in his thoughts, William doesn't notice the movement behind him until he hears footsteps and is startled to realize that someone is coming. Turning around, Sarah was standing there with her daughters. "How did you find me?" he asked, then turned back to the lake. "Your cell phone location is still off." Sarah replied softly, "William, I'm sorry about your mother." She added, her tone soft. "Yes?" he whispered. "Are you sad that she's gone? Or do you regret pulling her to your side?" Sarah was silent for a long time before she spoke. The last time I spoke to her, she said she wouldn't care about me anymore unless I pleaded with you to stop the divorce. She hung up before she could even say she loved me. Sarah's voice trembled slightly. I'm really sorry, William. When she finished, she turned around and prepared to leave. At that moment, Jenny suddenly spoke up, Dad, we're sorry too. Please forgive us for our earlier attitude. The two daughters rushed forward and hugged him tightly, tears streaming down all three of their faces together. This hard-won reconciliation came at the cost of my mother's death. At the wake the next day, as William approached the casket and looked at his mother's peaceful face, he felt a twinge of comfort knowing that she would finally be reunited with his father in heaven. It was somewhat of a relief to him that his mother had made all the arrangements before she died, even choosing a coffin. Just as he was talking to one of his mother's old friends, Sarah and the daughters arrived. His daughters embraced him with tears in their eyes, while Sarah kept her distance and stood quietly in the back of the room. After the prayer, William notices that Sarah has put something in front of the casket. As he approached, it was a family photo. It was of the twins as newborns, and he and Sarah were holding their daughters as their mother stood next to them, a happy smile on her face. His eyes moistened at the sight of the photo, and he carefully placed it in his mother's hand. It was customary for immediate family members to sit in the front row, but watching Sarah alone in the back row in silent tears, William knew his mother wouldn't want to see such a scene. Come over here, Sarah. Don't hide in the back, he whispered. She thanked him with red eyes and followed him to his seat in the front row. Her uncle offered to make room for her, and Emma cast an understanding glance. While the scene with Emma in one hand and his ex-wife sitting beside him was a bit unusual, it all seemed so natural at the moment. The post-funeral potluck was held at her mother's favorite restaurant, Norwegian. Seeing Sarah standing there at a loss for words, William offered to take her hand and lead her to Emma and the daughters' table. Sarah, no matter what happens, you'll always be part of this family, he said softly. Watching the tears slide from the corners of her eyes, William felt like he had finally let go of all his resentment. The DNA test results came back the same weekend that I was sorting through my mother's belongings. William's hands were shaking when he got that envelope. Although he threatens to take a paternity test mainly to embarrass Sarah, deep down, he does fear the truth he might face. Emma stayed with him. Do you need me to give you some privacy? William shook his head. Please stay. The moment he opened the envelope, he breathed a long sigh of relief. Jenny and Olivia were indeed his daughters. The result made him feel both relieved and guilty for doubting this before. They're my children, he said softly, his voice catching a little. Emma took his hand. I never doubted that. They're so much like you. William put the test report away. When I first asked to get the DNA test done, Sarah resisted so hard, swearing on her life that the baby was mine. But she signed the divorce papers anyway. She probably didn't want to lie and let the baby get hurt in that way. I don't think I'll ever tell them about it either. Let this secret pass with that marriage. Emma nodded. That's a wise choice. Life just keeps moving forward. After his daughters left for college, they video chatted with him weekly. Emma and he grows so attached that he begins to seriously consider proposing. Lisa also gets along well with his daughters and is like family. Sarah and he rarely spoke, but remained friendly whenever they met. She has also now found a new home with a well-to-do single father and seems happy. Some might say he should have forgiven that momentary mistake, but William has always believed that once a line is crossed, it's hard to turn back. This may strike some as too heartless, but he is at peace with his choices. Most importantly, he had finally found inner peace. Emma gives him the courage to start over, and the loss of his mother, though sad, unexpectedly mends their broken family ties. As Emma always says, life is like that. When one door closes, there is always another one opening for you. For William, despite the loss of a marriage, he has gained a new love and rediscovered the love of his daughters. It was probably the best thing that life had in store for him. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.